Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Inside the Vendor Network. Today, we're going to be turning experience into tangible value, an operator's journey, and how it's now driving strategy on the vendor side. Today, my guest is Renaissance Richards, also a great friend of mine, and most of us know her as Ren. So welcome to the show, Ren. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited about having you as a guest. You and I met about a year ago now. I would say it probably feels a little bit longer.
It does. It feels so much.
I know. I feel like I've known you much longer. But we remember meeting you the very first time. We were on a showroom floor, and Philip Burton actually introduced us. I was struck by your eyes. You have some of the most beautiful eyes I've ever met. And what I saw beyond just the beauty in your eyes was the beauty in your heart. Quickly connected with you talking about WMN, SFR. And then we started talking about some trade stuff. And next thing you know, I was like, man, I want to circle back around to her. I want to spend some more time with her.
Yep, I remember it.
That's what I love about this industry is the amount of friendships and the strong friendships. And I feel like everyone in this industry has a ton of heart. And so the name of my show is it's not always black and white, right?
Fitting, yeah.
And it's fitting. And so my goal is to bring color to people, the partnerships, the experiences, and all the things that like really light up this industry. And then really focusing on the vendors. I have a great lineup of guests, such as yourself, from the owner-operator side too. So I'm not going to spoiler alert my guests, but we're excited about some experience. And I think when I think about you, and I think about the amount of experience that you had in this space, it's amazing. Ren here is the Senior Director of Strategy for Real Estate Solutions at SeekNow. SeekNow is a vendor in the space. We're ready to get into a little more about what they do. She's leading transformative initiatives at SeekNow around strategy, right?
Strategy in the inspection space.
And the inspection space. And so, and how would we redefine it? I think we're all redefining ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your experience spanning from American Homes for Rent, now known as A&H, Magnolia Capital, Home Partners of America. Renaissance has built a proven track record of scaling operations, refining vendor management, driving digital transformation across both SFR and even multifamily platforms. You have some experience there. Your leadership includes oversight of quality control, capital programs, field operations, strategic initiatives that directly impact efficiency on how the owner-operators perform today. A lot of your early work and your team's work is some of the successes that we're seeing in the field today and the successes of the portfolios and the asset class. Impact on cost to maintain analysis and portfolio performance. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's so funny because when people say, oh, like how long have you been in the industry? And I'm like, yeah, it's like 15 years now. Right. But it feels like I just blinked.
You're right here.
Yeah. And I've been here. It actually started a little before A&H, although, I additionally knows AMH, so it's easy to just kind of, point a flag there. But, I grew up on a farm and, hands-on, helping my dad build things, and, from chicken coops to fences and, all that kind of stuff. And so when I relocated into Vegas, I wanted to do something with that knowledge. It could have fallen back on what I knew and what I've been doing, which was pest control, actually, for the many years at that point. But I sold my pest control business in Florida, decided I was going to open up a residential, maintenance company. I was, into making things that were ugly beautiful. I actually started by just helping out the real estate company I was renting the house from. And that's where I got my initial exposure to, turns, renewals and investors, doing fix flips, or a fix and rents kind of situation. So, my business grew. I ended up with 10 employees. We were doing, $500,000 revenue a year. And I ended up just saying, I want to do something else. Like I wanted to see that continue, but I wanted to pursue a more, deliberate career path in a corporate environment surrounding this kind of work. And so I handed the business off to my dad, and
What year was this?
2011,
Wow.
I guess. Yeah, 'cause that's when I've been doing my business for several years. So I handed the business off to my dad, and then started looking for a position. Ended up landing a superintendent role for A&H. I thought, I realized I got to start from the bottom.
Yeah.
And work my way up. And so took the superintendent role. Having done the under work before I started doing the superintendent role really gave me that experience of understanding, what the vendors go through, from that side of it, even dealing with late payments, lack of process, everything from, they don't know what colors they want to specs, to no specs, to making up their own specs. I was just like flabbergasted.
It's the balance between, especially when sounds like in your pest control company, you started with your own apartment or home that you were living in that company, that's a smaller organization. So they don't really have the resources to develop processes. And so you become that resource, right? And so I think that's one of the things you and I connect on really quickly is where there's not a process in place, we naturally are going to put one in place. You have to, right? And so, but we're good at that. It's your strength. Yeah.
Rose through the ranks there, and I was with AMH for about 7 years, and there are a lot of different things, from field manager, superintendent, to basically real regional field manager. I was managing 10 states for a while. I became the national capital programs manager, where I was handling a little CapEx for the existing portfolio, and I learned so much, and still very much good friends with so many of the people. I joke when people talk to me and I say I grew up there. Yeah, I did. And I grew up in the corporate environment at AMH, and it really shaped, not only my career path, but it also shaped the person that I have become over the years. And I think that the leadership that we still have in place at AMH is spectacular. I think the way that they look at housing, I think the way that they conduct themselves as a corporation, and I think that the way that they listen to their employees and really try to put out there what their employees' feedback is on what we should do. And they listen to their vendors, and they try to do, the right thing by their vendors. And I think that that's how they're kind of the bar.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Yeah, they kind of set the bar. They continue to set the bar, even though I don't work there anymore.
Working with them on the flooring side, I was always amazed. So Jose and his team is amazing. The way they nurture and develop the relationship, and their knowledge about flooring was so refreshing. They really are a class act and really committed to nurturing the relationship with the vendor, but really making sure that the vendor we understood what the deliverable needed to be, because ultimately the resident experience truly was important. It wasn't something just spoke about. Like, it's easy, I think, in this industry, there's a lot of catchphrases such as resident experience. And you can quickly know, and I don't think it's any organization has an attitude toward, like, we just say it, but we don't do it. But, there are certain people within our space that haven't fully understood what the resident experience means, because maybe they're just new in the space. And so they hear these catchphrases. So when we talk about resident experience, and I know how important that is to you, like, you're one of those people that when you spoke about resident experience, you felt the pain that your resident feels. Like you empathize with them in a sincere way. And when you got up in the morning, I know that you inspired your team and you held yourself accountable, actually executing on the resident experience. So share with me and share with the audience of Inside the Vendor Network, what does resident experience mean to you?
To me, resident experience is about giving a resident, a human, a place to call home, a place where they can build memories that are positive, not their house, ceiling falling in, things that are avoidable. It's about giving them an opportunity to live in a home, to feel as if they have given their money over to someone to live there they've worked really hard for, and they feel happy to come home to that place.
Yeah.
It's
The sense of pride.
a sense of pride in the door. I remember this couple I mean, I have no idea now who they are or anything, but I had this one moment when I was a superintendent at AMH that stood up to me. In the moment, I was so confused. But now when I look back at it, it means so much to me. And so I had toured this house, and I was there doing the movement inspection with them. You know, walking them around the house, showing them how things worked, and they had a couple of own kids. And the last thing I was going to do before I left was take the sign out of the yard. And they asked me if I would take a picture of them in front of in front of the house. And I thought, what am I doing that for? Literally at the time, I was just so confused about it. But, you know, I did it happily and took the sign out, put it in the back of my van, and closed the doors, and was shaking their hand. And they're like, you know, we're sorry. And I'm like, for what? Like, you know, you want the photo? It's great. And they're like, oh no, we've never been able to afford to rent a house. We've always just have like a 1-bedroom apartment, even with our little ones, and we're just so excited about this opportunity to live in this home. And man, it was like a blow to the chest.
Yeah.
It was like we do this for people. It made my chest puff up with pride that I was the one who was responsible for having put that house in that condition for them to enjoy. And it still today gives me goosebumps. You said, think about this story. And I think that story, if you know, if I could compress that story is what resident experience is for me.
Yeah.
That experience that I had with them and the emotional, you know, impact from that is what I believe we should be responsible for as an industry to provide every resident every time.
That's right. I agree with you. And, you know, this home, so when you were telling this story, I literally imagined, I was an Army brat. So,
Yeah, so you said
I moved right 3 years of my life. And so every time we moved we lived in quarters most of the time on base. But it didn't matter that we were on a military base and it was quarters. That was our home, right? So my dad traveled Monday through Friday, and he was a weekend warrior. I don't remember my dad never being gone because my dad was so present on the weekends. But in these homes, I remember the memories, the making donuts, like Elaine homemade donuts. But imagine this family, right? Those kids were running around. They're excited. That's going to live with those kids. It's going to it sets a precedent in their life. Those are good memories. But what about the other memories? I have a future guest coming on, and she's a designer for one of the large manufacturers.
nice.
And she's going to talk about how important it is around finishes and how it actually influences, you know, if people are going to have Thanksgiving dinner, they're going to take more pictures, first day of schools, graduations, proms. These are going to happen in these homes. These are people's lives. And like you said, they're humans. And for me, I think that's what resident experience was too. So, you know, in my cast in the flooring business, we worked on turn side, the occupied resident side too. And so it's so important. This is their home. This is where memories are going to be made. And there is a group of individuals that not only at any point couldn't get into a single family home, but there's a growing large amount of people who want to have a single family home and they don't want to own. They choose to rent. And there's an entire group of individuals who, what I call, are choose to renters. Right? It's a generation. It's a generation.
And then even maybe two, right? Because I look at the older generations as well, and they're moving away from those family homes, and you know, they're selling those properties and taking the money in order to really truly retire.
And travel.
Had travel and things like that, and they don't want the responsibility of having the upkeep of the property and the costs associated with that, or they don't have family around close enough to help that. And so we have maybe two generations of people that are more interested in renting than purchasing.
100%. By no means does this industry have it all figured out, but we've come a long way. And I remember, you know, my first SFR job in the flooring industry, I thought it was a scam. I thought that this company came in and was like, oh yeah, we're going to start buying up all these houses. And I said to my, Daniel Ray was on the sales associate that went out and met the company on site, and another like large REIT. And I was like, yeah, run a credit app. So like zero hit it, like we were going to run rented out of one of the largest buns in the world. And we're going to be buying anywhere from 50 to 100 adults a month. And I'm like, what? And I was like, is this a scam? What is happening? Plus, I was doing Ponzi. I thought it was an entire Ponzi scheme. I didn't know what to think. I was also new in flooring. Like, my background was in sales and marketing. So I was like, what have I gotten myself into? What is happening? Am I even qualified to make these decisions? Run a credit app. That was the best thing I could come up with because I was just worried, like, are we going to get paid?
Every day counts, and every delay costs. That's why top builders and operators are turning to Palisade, the waterproof, grout-free wall system that installs in hours, not days. No tile, no mess, no maintenance headaches. Just beautiful, durable panels engineered to perform. Save time, cut labor costs, and eliminate callbacks.
What do you think the real world wants are today?
Durability, process, and accountability. When I say durability, I mean durability in products that you use, all the way to durability and scaling. Unlike our phones these days. Yeah. You don't build something that you replace and every 3 years, Build something that can last through multiple tenants. I mean, I think one of the things that is still, I think we're still kind of struggling with as an industry is that we don't see individual tenants as, like a year over year, say a 12-month, lease. We don't really see them as being any harder on a property than owning the house and living in it for 12 years.
Right.
And that is a huge problem because they are.
Yeah.
Every family lives differently.
And they're starting to live longer. Like, so from what I understand, some reporting I've been looking at recently in some different editorials and articles across the industry by some thought leaders is it does sound like people are staying longer in a lease.
Well, that's driven from COVID and the price inflations, and people fear that, they move out and then
Dealing with the deposit.
Yeah, deposits. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure that will ever right-signed. I'm not sure it'll ever come back around where, people move annually like they used to, which is, I think collectively a good thing. I mean, for the industry, it's good. For people, it's good. But,
well, I don't think the owner-operators, I know in the past when I leased or I rented, sometimes I didn't have a choice but to move because they were really going to like jack up my lease rate. I think that our owner operators in this industry, they're not hammering at renewal. What we've learned as an industry, what the owner operators know, they know something about managing or 100,000 homes.
well, they become more efficient. As the industry has aged, if you will, grown, they've become more efficient in how they operate. So that's allowed them to keep the renewal rates compressed.
Yeah.
So it's not to say they won't raise rents, but it's not going to be like it was.
Right.
Where you could expect an immediate 5, 8, 10, 12% increase, 20% in some cases, depending on where you live. But yeah, like I think, durability and how you scale things and, accountability from the marketing that you put online all the way through, the very last day that a person occupies the house, for every person, whether you work for that company or not, that's involved in that property, holding them accountable. So vendors and property management companies alike.
Let's talk a little bit about Seek Now. And, you lost your position at HPA through the acquisition of Tricon Residences or residential acquiring HPA. It's horrible when people lose their jobs. However, we know that this industry, there's going to be some consolidation. That's how it has to happen. Any industry that you study that grew and developed, there was absolutely some consolidation that occurs. One thing I love the most about you is that you personally got involved in helping spotlight your team, their strengths. You promoted them across LinkedIn. Good job. That's really amazing to not only be a leader and managing your portfolio, but loving your team and helping your people. I think it was amazing how you lifted on your team, right? And part of my growth journey growing up in my career is I've been terminated. I've lost my job. I quit my job. I've changed jobs. That's part of life. But having true leadership through those comments really helps someone determine how they respond to it, and just demonstrating grace in tough times and really guiding your team. By the way, I just applaud you for that. It's amazing. So, and I knew your team did too. They were very, very grateful. So what lessons, I want to get a little more into Seek Now and on our vendor side, right? So you're totally amazing on the operator side. And you and I had a very long phone conversation. I literally from driving from Atlanta almost back to Charlotte. I mean, we talked about all sorts of different things and the excitement of coming from the owner operator side, moving back over to the vendor side. It's an adjustment, right? Because the lens is entirely different.
It is. The aperture is wide open. Yeah, the adjustment was a little rough, honestly. Because you come in and as long as I had been in the operator side at that point, you come in with all of the knowledge and what's wrong, right? And like how you envision it should be fixed from the vendor side. And then you get onto the vendor side and you're like, all right, here's what we need to do. This, and this, right? And then it's like, hold on. We have to put a whole bunch of processes in place to even do that. And I would encourage anybody who's watching this podcast, anybody who's out there, if you are on the operator side and you see yourself or you get put in a position where you're going to lose your position where you're at, or, there's something of that nature going on, I would highly encourage you to try to cross the road. Come over to the vendor side. And I say that not to push people for operations. I think it's fantastic. And there's days that I miss it. But because the vendor side doesn't really understand, there isn't an operator out there. They work with their vendors. They try to educate their vendors. But there really isn't an operator out there that is, hosting, classes or something, teaching vendors what you should be doing in order to do a better job for them, right? There's some internal coaching and there's, report cards that are report cards and things of that nature. It's guidance, but it's not really training.
Yeah.
And so when we have people such as myself who have this long, extending history with operations from the property management side of the world, you have an opportunity to share that well of knowledge on the vendor side. You really have a chance to elevate everyone in the process.
I'll tell you. So there's a handful of people who really nurtured Preferred, and me specifically. As I was running Preferred, I would, we were small. We had 5 employees when I started. In March, when we separated, we had 52 employees. So it took the Herculean efforts of a handful of people to really get Preferred. But I'll tell you, Imitation Homes here in the Charlotte market, specifically Bobby Monken, Amanda Blackman, they literally spent time holding my team in, taught us how to even say certain things, right? Like we argue that the legality. Yeah, they were like, stop calling our residents tenants. They're not tenants, they're residents. Don't call this a complex. On multifamily side, it's a community. Those defining things helped Daniel and myself and Patrick Nance, some of our leadership team at that time, to go back to our team and teach and coach on some basic things like words. That way, when you're involved in getting on the same page, getting people on the same page is sometimes just speaking those same language. When you say something, I say something, we mean the same thing. We all have our own experiences, and so we have different words that we use for different things. But I'll say, Amanda did an amazing job with her team. She would do a vendor summit, and she would bring in a couple of the other vendors in as well, and they would educate us on some certain things. That was the beginning phases of some of these organizations doing that for some of their larger vendors. Now, let's face it, flooring and roofing are 2 of the largest tickets in your home in a rehab or a turn. So, and pay. And I remember sitting in this vendor summit, and I remember Bill, one of the guys at IH, actually talking about how many coats of paint and talking to the painter and actually getting down to the nitty-gritty of that. That was so helpful. So to your point, it does help. I think we're going to start seeing more of that I believe there'll be some consolidation when it comes to vendors as well. I think there'll be some mergers. I think people will join forces. I think we see more of our vendors working together. I know with RM Interiors, we always work together. I mean, Preferred was a sub for RM Interiors when we got started. And so Mark and Rick kind of nurtured and mentored me in a sense during times. I studied what they did well. I studied their challenges. I was at conferences like this. I get to spend time with them. I wanted to know where they were struggling. I wanted to, without opening up my entire playbook, but collaborating like that amongst ourselves, I think Preferred can never be the flooring vendor for everybody and be everything to everybody. And I think it's important.
Know who your compliments are.
Right.
Not everything has to be a competition. If we're raffling each other, there's going to be some crossover, right? But, I mean, if
During
there's plenty,
Well, during COVID, when we were faced with supply chain issues, we had a set of homes that was ready for carpet or LVP, and we were waiting for our truck, or we had materials stuck out on the water. Mark had some extra carpet. I called over. I said, "Hey, I've got 2 turns. I got to hit deadline for the client." He's like, "Come get a couple rolls." We were working with each other. And I think that's really important too, when you come onto the vendor side, to realize that there's a network of vendors that our purpose together is to serve the owner operator and ultimately drive that rent.
Also important for the owner operator to understand the challenges the vendors go through trying to do their job. That's often overlooked as well. And then in the hustle bustle of trying to get things ready, and you have to trust that your vendor has your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And is doing everything they can. Now, not every vendor and not every time, but, when you've worked with a vendor long enough, you should be able to have that kind of relationship where you offer a little trust and the vendor offers a little insight into the reality of what's going on.
Sure.
I feel like too often I believe that there should be a little bit more open communication. And when you mess up or, you misorder, you didn't order enough carton or flooring, or, we didn't get the secret there on time, or
It happened.
it happens, but be honest enough.
Yep.
Just say, "Hey, unfortunately, this is what occurred. We're trying to make it right."
Quality, speed, communication. And back in the day, it was $1,000 a day. Could it done?
Yeah.
Right? So now that you're on the vendor side, how does Seek now address some of the pain points you once faced as an operator?
So the very first one that jumps out, honestly, is a lot of operators don't want to have to expand their wallet in order to have boots on the ground.
Sure.
Everywhere, right? And so Seek Now kind of immediately fills that spot. So when you need boots on the ground in a new market that you're spinning up while you're taking your time to pick the right technicians and, build your leadership stack for that district, MSA, or market, we're there for you. We're your partner. We're not necessarily a replacement. We could be, if there's an owner operator that doesn't, just flat out does not want to have boots on the ground, we can certainly fill that role.
Let's take a minute and let's tell the audience, for those that don't know, you and I might make an assumption that everyone knows what Seek Now does. So as you're talking and you're talking about, hey, we can fill a gap while an owner operator is standing up a new market, or if there's some reason, but what gap are you filling?
Inspections.
Inspection.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say inspections, what's that mean?
It means an inspection, just not anything. So, if you're a company, whether you're established or new, let's say you buy a couple homes or you buy a portfolio of someone, you're scaling a new market, you're adding to an existing market, that sort of thing. Instead of having to have immediate boots on the ground, we can go out and do your inspections on those properties, those acquisition inspections for those properties, and give you the feedback to understand what it's going to take to underwrite those properties and get them ready for you, for your portfolio.
So you provide a comprehensive inspection report.
Yes, to have a 10-month inspection a week. Yeah, and really what it is it's that clean, safe, functional. I mean, that's a common phrase in the industry. We are looking for cleanliness, safety, and functionality of all applicable, items and all. So, we're taking temperature splits, we're checking your outlets, we're flushing toilets and look at, are your clocks to the right time of day? How come on you? And, we're checking to see, does the stove have an anti-tip Do you have Charlie bars in the doors? That's part of your spec. And, we don't just do acquisition inspections though. If you have markets like, for example, when Tricon acquired the HBA portfolio, they didn't have technicians in all of the areas. But there was existing turnoffs. Sure. The ability to send us out coast to coast. We have over 1,000 people who perform these inspections for us day in and day out. And they will go out to the homes and they'll do the turn inspection and give you that information so you can get the vendor started with a nice little pretty bow on it. We're giving you all of the areas of concern. We're giving you either a scan of the property so you can do a virtual walkthrough, truly understand the state of the property. Or we could do a traditional type of inspection where it's just thorough documentations. We can even do estimations for you. So if you have pricing, we can plug in your pricing book and get you an estimate. That way, when you're ready and you're ready to engage a vendor, you can literally send the report plus the estimate and any other pertinent information over to your vendor and get ahead of the game. So it allows you to save some time. So instead of waiting 4 or 5 days for one of your technicians to get there because they have other competing obligations, we can be there in 24 hours, do the inspection, and get you everything you need back within 48 hours, meaning by that third day, you can have a vendor potentially at site. Yeah. That's the core of it. We do the entire life cycle. So acquisition to disposition and everything in between, renewal inspections. We swing by to do occupancy, which of course. Yeah, we can do, roof inspections. We can do emergency tarping for, any storm-related issues, remediation inspections, that sort of thing. So,
Well, what's your favorite part of it?
it's the organization of the boots on the ground. I just do love the process of getting out there and seeing what we're able to provide to people and really validating what's truly needed from like an agnostic standpoint. When I was an operator, unfortunately, this is true for every company. And if somebody tries to tell me it's not, they're full of it. It's your internal technicians, they're biased in a way, right? Like it's their workload. So not saying it's purposeful, but sometimes you just become housebblind. And so
Or sometimes I have this say, well, how I do it is.
yeah, you get that out of the tally.
Yeah.
But it's like, they go to a house and you're like, oh, yes, everything is subjective. So then they're like, well, that little scuff there, and this scuff here is fine. It doesn't smell that bad. Or, it's like, oh, it's just one light bulb and it just kind of snowballs and you don't get that consistency that you're looking for.
Right.
And ultimately that results in a lack of a good, resident experience like we talked.
And potentially a bad review.
Yeah, bad reviews. And you start off your relationship because your residents are a relationship.
100%.
It is the same as any other relationship you'd have with family, with friends. It is a relationship. And you start that relationship off with a lack of trust.
Yeah.
They trust you to make that home ready for them and their family. And if you can't provide that trust day one, you won't have it at all ever. You've lost it immediately. It will not come back.
Well, think about day one, right? So again,
It's already chaotic.
It's already chaotic. And if there's kids and pets and all this stuff involved, like they weren't banking on that thing, right? So, but the opposite of that is they go in and it goes as planned. Look, things happen, life happens, right? But the word I heard that you said was consistency, right? And so if we can have a more, right? I would always say, our strategy is not for perfection, it's for progress. What can we learn from any win, any failure? Progress is progress. And so we want to continue to make progress. So if someone's going in and your consistency level went on a move-in is 80%, we do it well. It's better than 60%. How can we move the needle? Where can you drive impact? Progress is progress. And when you're talking about big portfolios, fractionally, it has massive impact.
Yes.
And so you guys have the ability to scale. And I think that's all we...
Well, that's company scale, helping them with the consistency they're looking for. Because from RC, we're not part of your organization. So when we're So when we're going into a home, we're not looking at it from the micro lens, from a macro perspective, saying, from my experience, this company, this is what
You're serving...
we are just looking specifically at clean, safe, and functional. And if anything in the house doesn't check that box, it goes on the list.
Can you walk us through how property evaluations and inspection strategies are driving down cost?
Sure, and they actually, well, very, the very, very beginning, when you do the right acquisition inspection, you're able to harden the home. So you understand what the actual ground truth is of that property. It gives you that initial opportunity to put in the correct dollars in the right spot for that particular home, because you can't look at every home the same way. A house in Dallas is not the same as a house in Seattle. It's not the same as a house in North Carolina.
And it lets the portfolio manager make better decisions.
Yes, yeah. So if this house, obviously right off the bat, you're going to know whether or not you have a strong brand spec. You'll know what you need to change, right? But get beyond that. Move beyond your brand spec and say, this house has a lot of settling in the driveway. There's a lot of ponding. There's a lot of cracks. There's hazardous height differences in the sidewalk leading up. And so, one, do you want to pursue that house anymore, or do you want to immediately kick it out? Right?
Yeah. They could move to dispo.
Right, exactly. It can immediately move to dispo, which we see quite frequently.
Because every hard needle on the bottom line is
Exactly. Or do you want to put the money in and repave and, have somebody come out, take a look at the structure and make sure everything is good? Do you want, plastic faucets? Or do you want, faucets that are made fully of metal that are going to last for the next, 6-7 years of tenant life? So it gives you that opportunity to drive down costs from the beginning. And then, of course, in turn, it's a very similar experience, right? Like, you're saving money by understanding what's actually occurring at the property and putting the dollars where they matter instead of where they don't. Because I think people like to take a broad brush.
Yeah.
Right? Take a broad brush and start sweeping, like, oh, we need paint at all these houses. We need flooring in all of these houses. But you don't really.
So one of the value propositions we would always talk about is repair versus replace. Working with a vendor who has your materials in the warehouse and can do a repair versus a replace, right? So if you even take a minute to go back in, see, okay, we own this house. Who did the install on that flooring before? Do we still have the material? We could do a repair here versus a replace. It's not being cheap. It's being economical. It's being a value buyer.
If you can't keep your NOI under control, who does that fall to? Who is going to have to take the burden of that?
The resident.
Exactly.
Ultimately.
So if you are a smart company, you're going to continually try to find vendors and find ways and processes to keep that under control, to keep your turn costs down, to keep your NOI in a nice little box. It's like, you don't want to open Pandora's box. You want Pandora's boxes to stay really tightly closed. And so the smartest and the top understand that you have to have the right vendors. You have to have the right ground truth data on every house, because yes, when you're a behemoth, like 80,000 homes, 60,000 homes, we all know what I'm talking about, huh? Sure, 1 or 2 houses here and there isn't really going to, make the boat tip. But if you let that happen in a systemic way, it'll take you.
It will absolutely.
And the people will leave. The residents will.
Well, that's the thing. When you ask me the question, who's ultimately going to pay for it? Well, I may even change my answer. The resident would pay for it. However, it also might turn into a home that's not leased.
Sure.
Because competitively speaking, if that home costs more and now I'm just going to pay for it, I'll go down the road and get a competitive product. And that's the competitive cost. Right.
Right? You didn't get all these new builds from the same companies that are renting legacy portfolio homes 2 blocks away. So if you can get a brand new house for a very similar price as to the one that's falling apart that nobody's paying attention to, then why wouldn't I just rent the newer one? And now all of a sudden you have this legacy portfolio home that used to perform and yield very well that no longer yields. Can't move it. And that's just sheer.
And then actually oversight. And it's oversight, but actually the inspection services that you offer actually can move the needle on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That property.
That will see is understand where your property is at. Not only, just from visuals, but from the inspection that we do and the data that we provide you will give you a comprehensive, I guess, health check on that house.
Yeah. So when I think about Seek Now, I also, for some reason, technology and innovation resonates with me all the time. And you're also a tech company. You got some pretty sexy stuff going on, don't you?
Yeah, we have some really great partnerships with some companies that we, utilize their technology, but we also have a really amazing product and dev team that help us to streamline all of our products into, what we have branded as a proprietary product called Maestro. And so Maestro really, I actually really love the name Maestro because I was used sure. Yeah, so our technology there and accompanied by some partnerships that we have with some really innovative companies really allows us to excel in the inspection space.
So how do you balance innovation with the need for tangible, measurable outcomes for owners and investors?
That comes down to the training for the technicians in the field. And we have an amazing training department. Ron Young is here. And he kind of heads out that Seeker network. We have an amazing tag team and CDE team, contractor development team, and it's that segue, right? It's the difference between how we utilize our technology, train it to the seeker, and then apply what the seeker needs to know around inspections, industry specific inspections, and then how they end up using that field and completing those inspections. So it really, to me, it comes down to the training aspect of it.
100%. Yeah. And there's so many transferable skills, right? So from hiring and identifying talent within your team, I really, even in the flooring industry, it's hard to find flooring people. And so when we looked for talent before we looked for experience, right? We looked for attitude and is this person going to be able to survive in this environment? This environment is entirely different.
Do you know how we source? Tell me. So I will tell you, I am very proud of this. I'm very proud to work for CTEL and in a lot of ways, but this is one of the ways that I find very touching. So we work with SkillBridge and we directly recruit from the military. So as people are looking to leave the military and move into a civilian job, a lot of those people are not used to civilian life. We directly recruit for candidates that are interested in, working for us as they are exiting, the military life. And it gives them an opportunity to segue back into civilian life while at the same time building up their confidence. Yeah. And in doing something a little bit different. And what that gives us, from a Seek Now perspective, what that gives us is people who are already detail-oriented, they're autonomous, clean-cut. They give the proper appearance, dependable, reliable regimen. They're process. They have processes in place. They hold themselves to a high standard.
I love that because my father, I was a freshman in high school and my father retired after 20 years in the United States Army. And so when I tell people that, they're like, wow, how old was your dad? So my dad was 40 when he retired from the United States Army. By no means was he ready to
give up the ghost.
But there was absolutely a transition for him. So like you said, building up confidence, I think that's so remarkable. And so if any of our audience is ex-military, go over to the Seek Now page, see what they have for job opportunities. What are you hiring for right now, by the way?
Always hired for seekers.
Okay.
And then right now we're actually on the hunt for a strategic accounts manager, art director, I think it is. For our team. So yeah, and then the insurance side of Seek Now is constantly hiring as well. And so, definitely encourage anyone who's interested in looking at Seek Now as a possible employer to go to our page, check out what's available on LinkedIn. We post there quite frequently what we're looking for.
Yeah, leadership's amazing. I know a handful of people at Seek Now, and I would definitely refer any good people I know. So what advice would you give vendors who want to build a stronger relationship with operators? If there was the magic wand and the one thing that they could apply today, what would you say they need to make sure they're skilled up on or leveled up on? What's that one thing that you think is like, hey, if you got this, you can figure out the rest?
Find your advocate.
Find your advocate. Yeah. What's that find?
Find your advocate within, whatever your business is. Find the person that is part of your client that is willing to be your advocate. By advocate, I mean not only advocate on behalf of your company to do work, but also that person is likely to help you understand the needs of that company, the needs of the industry. And don't just stop with asking questions. I'll say that, meet them.
Yes.
Go to their properties with them, listen to what they're saying, take notes, and then apply it.
Yeah.
Don't just go take all of their time and their information and then do nothing with it.
Right.
Find your advocate.
Value their time for sure. Value their time for busy.
And by value their time, I don't mean take them to meals and buy things for them. What I mean is spend time with them. Make them, I don't know if you've heard of Patty Beach, but I have attended one of her podcasts or her sessions as well. And one of the things she talks about is Shuba. So it's seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated. And so I think when you are finding your advocate, you need to follow those rules of Shuba. So I highly recommend you look for her book.
Patty Beach. So drop it gold here. The Art of Alignment, Shuva.
Yes. It's a really simple book. It's easy to read. It's not long. But the core values you take away from that
Comes out in audio for us audio listeners.
Yes, it does come out in audio. It's truly amazing, and it has stuck with me since the moment I wrote the book. I'm not really a leadership book kind of person, but I read the book and I powered through it on a trip from Vegas to Seattle. Like that's how short the book is. It's real short, but the impact and the lessons within it are huge and will carry with you. So look for your advocate and apply the Shuba method, and I think you'll be in a really good spot.
Well, Shuva.
I Shuba you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on this show today, Ren. It's your first time on this show. It's one of my first episodes, or our first episodes. This podcast is, I believe, for us, by us.
Yes.
And looking forward to having you on the show again. We're going to continue conversations as we all continue to grow in Shuva. So, thank you.
We Shuba you.
We Shuva you.